Emmanuel Macron is the first European leader to visit the White House this term. What were his main priorities heading into that meeting?
I think he had three main priorities. The first one was to get other European nations around the negotiation table. It can't all be Russia and the US negotiating for Ukraine. The second was to ensure that there would be deterrence capacity if there is a peace treaty, because deterrence and weaponry are the only concepts that the Russians understand, really. History proves this. And the third thing was to make sure that he would also give one to Donald Trump by saying that, yes, Europe needs to grow stronger militarily speaking, that it cannot rely solely on the US. That has been the French line since pretty much Charles de Gaulle. So Macron is not unique in thinking this. But it is something that Donald Trump has been arguing for several years now, in particular with regard to NATO. So it's a you scratch my back, I scratch your back situation.
Donald Trump and Emmanuel Macron tend to have a pretty friendly relationship. How much sway do you think the French leader has over the US president?
Look, that hasn't always been the case. In recent time, it's been much better. I think both leaders have drunk a little bit of Kool-Aid because both of them have a somewhat significant ego, and they're now aware that they need one another to work. I mean, when you think about it from an American perspective, France is a second strike nuclear capability country. There are very few of these. It's also at the United Nations, the Security Council has got a veto right. So it's a good ally to have to get Europe to move. And of course, the US have been a traditional ally of France for quite a long while. And in the press conference that the two leaders had only a few hours ago, they talk about World War II, they talked about Notre Dame, they talk about Lafayette, all this sort of commemorative diplomacy you can expect. So the relationship at the moment, you've got two very different men with very different agendas, but on this specific front, they're working together because they know that they can each achieve part of their agendas through that collaboration.
The US president appears to be keeping NATO countries on their toes a bit. Is there a possibility here, do you think, of the US pulling out of NATO entirely? And if they did, what would NATO look like without US support?
Well, I think that might be a little bit extreme. I think what President Trump is trying to achieve is more European engagement in NATO. And numerically, you can't really prove him wrong. It is a fact that the US have been the backbone of NATO. They are the one who created it. And that was in a context of a world separated in two, the West and the East, and, the Cold War. That landscape has changed. For a long time, American presidents would continue to heavily support NATO because it was in America's strategic interest, in America's financial and economic interest. According to Donald Trump, this is no longer the case. And what Donald Trump is asking is for Europe to shoulder its military capacity to a greater degree. This is where Emmanuel Macron agrees with Donald Trump. France has been arguing for a stronger military Europe for decades. Some countries have had a relatively free ride on NATO. Germany is one of them, for instance, whereby German or some other European countries' protection has been ensured and guaranteed by American nuclear deterrence. This is not how the UK or France see national sovereignty. You need to be in control of your own defense and weapon system. Of course, both the UK and France have an interest in that, in the sense that they are the third and the fourth weapon system exporter. So shifting from the US to them, or to a more integrated European defense industry, is not only in the interest of Europe, but also in the interest of France and the UK.